Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry, if you're not sober or not ready to be sober, or you're not sure if you're coming or going like Corey, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense. My name is Shawn and I am your host. I'm joined by my good friends and fellow trudgers. Please remember to listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our videos will still be posted each week so you can watch episodes on YouTube and Facebook. But as always, please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Gentlemen, good evening. Happy Monday. It is possibly the most joyous Monday, aside from if any of my children were born on a Monday, that could possibly be, and I'll get into that in a moment, but I want to see how you guys are doing. First, Corey, let's start with you. I know you're befuddled already.
Yep, first question. Do you not know what day you had children on?
Day of the week? No. I know the date, but I don't know. I don't remember what day of the week it fell on.
Mine's easy. They're both Sunday. And one was on the Super Bowl, so I'll never forget that, you know?
Well, that is easy. Yeah. That is easy.
Did you watch football then?
No. That was the year after the Eagles won and the Patriots won. Who were they playing? I heard it was like a super boring game.
Rams.
Was it the Rams? Then they won. The Patriots won. 2019.
It was like the most boring Super Bowl of all time or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the Jared Goff one?
Yeah.
Yes. Because I remember asking somebody how the Super Bowl was, and they were like, you didn't miss anything. Tom Brady won. And I was like, okay. Anyway, what did you ask me, Shawn, if I was good, if I'm okay?
I asked how you were doing.
Yeah, I'm good.
General question.
Yeah. I'm going to Disney this week. So nice. I think I mentioned that already, but that's going to be fun. I'm stoked about that. I have lawn care professionals taking care of my grass now, which is good because I wasn't. And
it went from, notice, Greg, how it went from a landscaping company to lawn care professionals.
Right. He's really dancing around the real issue, which is
probably the 12-year-old neighbor that's just cutting his grass for $20.
Nah, God, I wish it was $20.
Yeah.
But no, dude, my lawnmower broke, and it was like, well, I'm not gonna cut this shit in the summer anyway, so I'm just gonna start paying somebody now to do it. And then in the winter, I'll pick it back up for the once a month cut. I'll buy a lawnmower. We'll see.
We have another group thread with a couple of our buddies, and we are constantly reminding Corey in that thread that he is not a poor, and so this further illustrates the fact that Corey is in fact very well off, that he can afford to hire his own prestigious lawn care company to cut his grass for him. So congratulations. I think that's a golf clap, if you will, you know.
You gave me shit for having a lawn care company. Greg.
I did. No, that's my way of giving Corey shit as well. Yeah. I don't believe in it.
We're doing my own lawn, and I did some today, and we'll see. I may crumble and buckle under the heat of summer in South Florida as well, but I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna
it is a different beast down there. It is a different beast.
It is,
oh, so. Yeah, dude. And it's just, my yard is bigger than the last one, and it sucks. It sucks in 70-degree weather. It's terrible. Also, let me just mention before my time runs up here that
sorry, time's up. We got to move on. My apologies.
All right, no problem. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding.
Along with Disney this weekend, it is also WrestleMania weekend. It remains to be seen if Greg and I are ever going to talk about it on another channel. Not another channel, but our channel.
Our YouTube channel.
But it's WrestleMania weekend. John Cena is a heel, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
You sound such an old man saying that. He's a heel. It sounds like such an old person saying.
It's a wrestling term, Shawn.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. You've explained it to me. It just sounds old.
Corey, we've got some stuff we'll open up for sure. So,
yeah, stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I mean, last year's WrestleMania was epic. Not just because I was there. If it tops that one, dude, I don't know, but
it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So,
all right, Bill, how you doing, man? What's up with you?
If I was any better, I wouldn't be here.
What's that mean?
That just take it how it is, Corey. It means I'd be at WrestleMania this week.
And you're doing bad enough to hang out with us. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's a slow week. So So yeah, hanging in there. Having a good week here. Doing the old build up for the old daughter coming this week and getting ready to take her out this weekend. She got me viciously sick, so this past weekend I had about the worst sore throat I've ever had in my life, and slept the majority of the weekend, so that was fun. But the show must go on, gentlemen. Here I am.
He's on the mend.
Indeed.
Greg, how you doing?
I am also on the mend. I had a decent weekend, but I was sick all weekend long, so that was fun. Thankfully, I have a wonderful lady to take care of me, and she made me homemade soup all weekend long. A couple different varieties were absolutely delicious.
Is she there?
No.
Okay. The way you did this, I thought, or this.
Yeah. I was just I was talking with my hands. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. But so I thanked her by providing her with some of my sickness. So if you're listening, babe, you're welcome.
So what, drug addiction or?
No, not quite that much. But yeah,
gotcha.
just a real nice sinus cold going on. But yeah, pumped for NBA basketball, playoff basketball.
Yeah.
Pumped for WrestleMania. It's going to be a good week. We are, as I said, on the mend. And yeah, just looking forward to some fun stuff this upcoming week. So
very good.
Hey,
yeah, we're gonna have some extra NBA content on our YouTube channel a little later this week. Corey's gonna get up there and break down the Philadelphia 76ers, their corporate structure and how they work, and then Greg and I are gonna.
I don't think they do work. I think that's the problem.
Well, not this time of year. They're not.
That is the problem. But so we'll have some of that. Keep that in mind. As Corey and Greg alluded to, they'll also have some, hopefully some WrestleMania stuff coming. What?
I don't want to interrupt here, but like, you'd be the one to tell me, do the Phillies suck all of a sudden? Do you know? Do they suck? I feel like they've lost a few.
I know
it's a
long season.
It's a long season. Slow starts. You can get away with slow starts. For anyone who's listening to this when it comes out, Corey just put up his hands like he was confused, which that's his natural state, let's be honest. But that's why we stopped and paused and said what. But it's a long season, Corey.
Baseball is a marathon.
Couple things real quick on my end. Everything's fine on my end. I had a house full of 8-year-olds and 5-year-olds on Saturday. My daughters had some of their friends, both age groups, come sleep over. It was a wild night in the McDonald household. Even wilder next morning when my wife got up early before they were all up and went to work, and I was just here with a bunch of kids. But honestly, they were all really great. And now, like you guys know, or at least you guys are starting to learn that it's now that we've done it, like it's not our turn for a long time now. Like the road, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it was that. Oh, okay. You know, so we don't have to do that again. That next time it'll be at a couple different houses. So that's always good. I do want to just real quick.
It's your turn with me, Shawn.
Yeah, I do want. Well, your daughter's easy, dude. She's.
I thought that Bill was going to sleep over.
When you get like 3, yeah. Well, Bill can. I wouldn't let him
That's
live.
That's what
with
I really
me.
meant.
I wouldn't let him live with me when he left the halfway house. But 2 things real quick. I'll start with the good stuff first.
Oh,
if any of you guys followed this weekend in golf, it was an absolute, and I'm not even like being facetious. It was an absolute historical Masters championship. Rory McIlroy has won the Grand Slam finally. If you're interested any more on that, I put up a 18 and change minute video this morning on our YouTube channel, and I went deep diving into all the stats and all the history and all the just everything about it. It was, I'll say this, and I hope you guys can understand. I know you'll be able to understand the analogy. Whether you agree with it or not is a different story. What he did, completing the career Grand Slam in golf, it is similar to a three-peat in professional sports. Like that's how hard it is. That's how rare it is. And it's really hard in golf when you're literally playing against like anywhere from 70 or 80 to 150 other guys in a tournament. That's how big the fields range. And the top players in the world are just gunning. And that's how hard it is. What he did, it took him 11 years to complete it. A lot of chances, but it was historical, and it was the absolute like. He was up by 3 shots, then he was down by 2, then he was tied, then he was up by 4 shots, and then it was 1, and then it was tied, and then he missed a putt and forced a playoff, and then won the playoff. It was the level. It's equivalent to like 3 Hail Marys being caught, 1 being intercepted on the goal line, like all kinds of, like, I'm trying to equate it to that. It was unbelievable. I was yelling, I was crying, I was screaming. He's one of my favorite players. It was very emotional. If you can look up any of the videos of him and his reaction after he won, and like his interaction with his caddy, who's his longtime childhood friend, his daughter and his wife, like just emotions galore. It was a phenomenal day in the world of golf. Really and truly like unbelievable. It was history. It was historical. Like, only 6 other players in history have ever won the Grand Slam. The last one was 25 years ago with Tiger Woods. Like, that's how historical we're getting here in that kind of company. So, phenomenal. Go check out our YouTube channel.
I already knew everything you said.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you watch the video?
No.
No.
I was lying. I'm sorry. What
kidding.
Video?
I put up a video this morning.
Oh, no. No.
On our YouTube channel. In other news, and just a real quick shout out, we don't have to spend time on it, but today is 5 years ago, our good friend Brian Beattie passed away today. Right. I'm sure it's all over social media because those people all like to come out.
No, they died off, dude.
Happens that barely even knew him. Some claim they did, some actually did. And the ones that actually did, you know who you are. And just, hope you're resting well up there, Brian.
That was a hot take from you, Shawn. Holy shit. I don't even know if I would have been that blunt.
Well, it's true. I haven't been shy about that.
I agree with you. I haven't been shy. However, I will say that I didn't see anything today actually on social media. I think they found something else to do, to be honest.
Brian would be very upset that we're not all talking about him. So,
well, he just got talked about, so he's okay. He's resting easy.
I have a reminder set in my phone. It goes off every year on this date. Just not that I would forget, but just one of those things. So what else? Anybody else got some other stuff they want to talk about? What else is going on?
We see any random acts of kindness out in the wild this weekend or week?
I did my best to avoid those.
I'm sure you did. Bill, we tried introducing a new segment last week, and it's like anything you might have witnessed or been a part of, or just seen or heard a random act of kindness, or just like general goodwill from one human to another. Not necessarily anything that we did. We're not trying to toot our own horn, but specifically something we might have witnessed, whether it was our children or coworkers or friends and family, or just legitimately out in the community. And to be honest with you, Greg, I forgot all about it, so I didn't really even put much thought into it. So.
Dude, I don't know if it's because it's Monday, so it's like the week's just starting. Like, I raced last week already. I might have saw something. I'm having a mental breakdown right now.
I'm sure we did.
Somebody did something nice.
I'm sure they did.
It was probably me.
You guys got any? I know Corey said he's going to Disney. You guys got any travel plans upcoming? Anybody going anywhere?
My next booked travel excursion is to our good friend Mark's wedding in July.
Going to Italy in June, and then Mark's wedding in July.
Nice, dude.
I'm getting invited to that.
Italy?
To Mark's wedding?
No, I'm still waiting on the invitation to Italy. Yeah, Mark texted me the other day, and he said
he'll invite anybody. Like not that like. But he literally did he invite you, Shawn? He invited the entire fantasy football league. I know that.
I think I got to save the date. I don't know if I actually got an invitation, but I have
that is the invitation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. My wife will be.
It should be fun though. You guys should all come. We should do an episode of the pod up there.
Funny story.
Mark cool.
Mark texted me while he was at the place getting ready to make those save dates, and your guys' came. It was a refrigerator magnet, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. So he's literally paid them and he's about to turn it in and he goes, "Hey, just real quick, what do you think of this picture?" And he texted it to me and I'm like, "Mark, that's the wrong date. He didn't even have it like in the right month." I'm like, he almost put out like however many 500 of those that he did. And it was almost just a complete botch. 500 magnets with the wrong date on it. So,
well, he might want to
Special
explain.
individual.
They might want to explain to people that a save the date is the invitation, because people are going to get the save the date and not get an invitation and think that they're not coming, like that they're not invited, and people aren't going to show up. Because I was
The
waiting for
save
an
the date's
invitation.
like the precursor to the invitation.
Yeah,
right?
that's historically that's how I think it's supposed to be done.
it's all part of the grand scheme of making more money too. You got to send out the save the dates and then you got to send out the invitations.
He wants to wait and see if he meets any new people to invite between now.
Do you guys remember the Seinfeld episode where George was engaged to Susan and they're licking the envelopes and she ends up dying because of the toxic glue on the envelope?
R.I.P. Susan.
R.I.P. Susan. And then he had
another news and notes about that too, though. Like, so the guy's like, yeah, he invites the whole fantasy football league. He's like, yeah, it's our 10th year in this fantasy football league. We're gonna do a live draft, right? For the which would be absolute insanity. It would take hours and hours and hours. All right, Mark. Well, what night are we gonna do it? Oh, we'll do it right after the rehearsal dinner. So like the night before the wedding, right? So I'm like, I'm assuming this is pre-approved, but okay. So then like a month later, this is just more recently, I'm on the phone with them and I don't know I'm on speaker. I'm like, so we're still doing the live draft the night before the wedding, right? And his wife to be is like, what? Oh, hey,
got
babe, yeah. You said we could do it, like, and she completely like was not feeling it. I guess they worked it out though, but I don't know how that's gonna work.
He's such a unique individual, that Mark.
He's gonna be snookered up anyway, dude. That's not gonna work. He's gonna be, yeah.
I got to watch football at my rehearsal dinner. It was nice.
That was pretty fun. I will say that.
Yeah.
I will say that. So I got a big golf trip coming up. I got my one last kind of big hurrah before the new baby comes. I'm going on like a 4-day golf trip in June with some buddies and my dad over to Tampa, where like legitimately all we're going to do is play an absolute shit ton of golf and possibly sleep and eat in between. And the only reason we're going to sleep is because you can't play golf when it's dark out. So I'm excited about that. That's the kind of stuff that gets me going. I'm very excited. Got a great deal on it. Really, really nice accommodations and a whole bunch of other perks over in Tampa. This place called Innisbrook Resort and Spa, and it's gonna be huge. So I'm looking forward to that. Father's Day weekend we'll be doing that. So my mother-in-law will be in town most of that month, so I wanted to try to do it when she was in town so she could help Catherine out with the kids, and she'll be rather large by then. So good stuff on my end. So, all right, let's get into it then. All right, so we're kind of continuing this theme that we've been continuing, and I'm gonna read a little bit, but I have a very specific question I want to ask the three of you, and I think this is going to spark a pretty decent conversation, and it's going to be somewhat of a version of a conversation or an argument, or just Corey yelling at the screen that we've had before. But I want to read this first. So. And I guess keep in mind that these may not apply to all recovery groups, but they definitely apply to the one that the four of us belong to. And also, even if it doesn't specifically pertain to your brand of recovery or your style of recovery, they could, and they are excellent kind of guideposts to better living as a group and also individual. So the recovery group should remain forever non-professional. We define professionalism as the occupation of counseling alcoholics for fee or hire, but we may employ alcoholics or drug addicts where they are going to perform these services for which we may otherwise have to engage people that are not in recovery. Such special services may be well recompensed, but our usual recovery work is never to be paid for. So there are a list of questions, and I'll scroll through the questions if I think. But the main question, and I want to start with Corey, if you don't mind, Corey. Is it okay if I'm in recovery to work in the recovery field? And not only is it okay, what could possibly be the like the pitfalls or the benefits of that?
Well, my knee-jerk reaction was to make a joke and say absolutely not. It's not okay. But I will not. Yeah, dude. So first off, full disclosure though, you're talking to somebody who's never worked in the recovery field either.
I know.
So I don't know.
And the other two on this podcast have.
Right.
And neither have I. So
that's fine. Okay, this is what I can say. Here's my problem with it. I often think, and I have plenty of friends that I think do a decent job at keeping their recovery separate from their work. I think from my eyes, I've seen more people not do a good job of it than have, but I do know a few that have done okay with it. I don't want to take any personal digs at anybody, but if I was asked offline, I could also point out certain things about pretty much every individual that I've known to be in recovery and work in the recovery field that maybe they slid on a little bit. You know what I mean? I guess is the best way I can phrase it. I don't mean any disrespect or anything like that, but you same vice versa. My flaws are out in the open for basically everybody to see as well. So like you can argue that too. But anyway, I think my thing is, and I think about this kind of often, I thought about it yesterday and today a little bit, like my problem working in the recovery field, the treatment industry would be like, I think it starts with the fact that like, I know that my recovery is in a spiritual foundation, right? And I've been through 4 treatment centers, and like, not to totally discredit what they did for me, but like on the whole, 75% of it was absolute junk that I threw out. And like, I'm still sober, and like, that's my story and it's not everybody's. And a specific type of person might thrive by going through the whole phases of treatment and whatever. I actually said it in the group chat the other day that like what treatment did for me was provide like a structure, like a step down structure. Like it was like, I was inpatient, then I was outpatient, then I was like less outpatient, then I went to like halfway and stuff and so on. My problem, what I'm getting at is my problem, I think, if I was working in recovery would be like knowing that real recovery is for a person like me is based in a spiritual foundation and not in the freaking DBT class or whatever. That is all useful information. But like, what is it called? Dialectic
behavioral therapy.
Right. And I actually enjoyed those classes to an extent, but like, and it's not all useless information. I'm not saying that, but like, I mean, dude, to be straight up, I'm going to shut up, but like to be straight up, like my primary therapist in my last treatment center, his best advice to me was like, hey, you're a heroin addict. In about 5 years after of complete abstinence for about 5 years, you can probably smoke weed and drink. Like that was his freaking advice to me, dude. And at least for me, at least for this type of person, that advice, had I taken it, which thank God I knew he was full of shit. But had I, if I take that advice, I die. That's the drug addict I am, right? Again, I'm not going to generalize and say that's everybody. I also had a lot of good therapists throughout that phase of treatment too, because they kept getting fired or something. I don't know. I kept getting a new one, but I did have some good experiences too. But anyway, to sum all that up, that would be my problem as a person in recovery and working in recovery is like, how do you reconcile it all? Then add in the fact that like, do I work for a treatment center that is putting people on long-term medications like Suboxone and stuff that, in my view, again, is for a specific type of person that might have success with it, but somebody like me who has tried it, who has had friends that have tried it, who have seen people die from trying that way of life, not necessarily the treatment center's fault necessarily, but like it's just there's so many gray areas with it that it gets really muddy. And like I just bitched up a storm the other day in a group chat about like a specific circumstance where I know somebody who went to treatment and they're on a freaking list of medications already, and it's like bro, you're not depressed. Your life sucks because you burned it down with drugs and alcohol. I'm not a doctor, but like, what if it's just that and you're not actually chronically depressed? That's just I don't know. Again, not a doctor though. Not a doctor. Gotta say that. And I understand that. And I understand that I don't know everything and that I'm just very opinionated and judgmental. However, I think all angles have to be looked at. So, did I answer that at all?
Yeah, no, listen.
Okay.
That was kind of the discussion I wanted. Bill, let's go to you next.
Yeah, I don't really. It's definitely not my place to tell someone if they should or should not. I think everyone should consult with their own, recovery group, mentor, etc. But from my experience, obviously, I think that many people work in the field in one form or another. You're not going to have a doctor get sober and then say, hey, you can't be a doctor anymore. You're not going to have a paramedic do that. You're not going to have a therapist do that. I believe in some of the pamphlet, the recovery pamphlets, it says they would recommend separating your identity when at this job, like not stating, hey, I'm in recovery. I think that's a big mistake that people make. And they also get kind of crowded in to the box there of, well, we're all here, because, it is a little different being a behavioral health tech probably, because it is probably literally, unfortunately, they're hiring a lot of their former clients. I was offered a job doing that at 3 months in recovery, and I turned it down. I mean, it was nearly
3 months.
Nearly twice the minimum wage I was making that time.
Wow.
Yeah, correct. I was 3 months, and I did so well in my shares in the rooms that somebody offered me a job making $12 an hour when I was making $7 an hour at that time. And those are no exaggerations. And I turned it down because I knew that I needed to play it slow, So eventually I got offered a job that was not in that role, where I wasn't so hands-on with people. And to me at that time, it seemed like a good fit. I'll say this, I was more like from an optics level, I was more physically night to night basis engaged in recovery at that time than ever, probably. So I don't think it had any bearing on me. I think the bearing is on a person's soul and their desire of what they want to do at that time. I know people in the medical field right now that our position is to be of maximum service. I know guys that are doctors that I've had the privilege to work with here, and they go in there and they're able to reach out to a great bit of people from a subliminal level, even from the perspective of a doctor without the disclosure, when they see some of these issues and say, maybe you should go over, try this place out down the street here, and I've seen that be effective. So I'm not going to tell, unless an individual specifically is trying to, get me to fully mentor them in that capacity. I'm not going to tell a wholesale of one way or the other. I think there is a ton of bull crap that goes on with the recovery community as well. I will say I had that job in recovery, and it was a decent job, and it was more like middle tier, personnel wise. And I lost the job like over a weekend. They eliminated the entire department. And that's kind of like the thing that I would warn people of is
there's no loyalty.
It's so cutthroat. And when you make your bed with thieves, you're probably water seeks its own level, and when someone lets you down to that capacity, now all the other behavior techs stole all the good jobs at McDonald's, and you have to you have to be the bad guy instead of like the fry guy, you know what I mean? And you could have got ahead. You could have been like the supervisor by now at McDonald's. So my point in saying that is because I was a fast food worker early in recovery, but guess what? That route I'm grateful for today because it helped me reach a higher level today through self-discipline. So, is it cut out for most people early in recovery? Hell no. I definitely wouldn't send a loved one in there to do that. Can a person with a professional background, like a clinician or a doctor, like I wouldn't say, hey, don't do this. I might say, take a break for 6 months to a year, depending on their financial situation, their family situation. But like I said, the fellow that I'm referring to went right back to that field, and everybody's different. Like he was able to use the maturity to compartmentalize that in itself. So, to fit yourself a maximum service without being of service, right? Don't make it my job, but don't do it vice versa either, is kind of the saying, without being, without saying the full saying, but it's kind of an art more than a science. So I would say that I do know people with success, but it's probably less than 10%.
Very good. Thank you for that insight, Mr. Greg. I know you come at it from a different angle a little bit.
Well, it's just this is a three-headed beast, if not more. I think, to tackle, but certainly in the frame and the lens that I have experience in, and I will try my best to keep it at that. It's tough, and kind of like Bill said, it's not my place to tell somebody what they should and shouldn't do. For me, I was close to 2 years sober, but when I went to work in treatment, and it kind of came it kind of came about because I was working still in the restaurant industry and in the hotel industry, and I got sick and tired of working long nights, and it just kind of was at the point where I was like, kind of beyond that. I didn't want to work in that line anymore, and I was hired on with a treatment center down there to be their director of housing. It was an intensive outpatient program, so they have the housing, what goes on in the houses, and then separate from that is what goes on in the clinician realm, and in the kind of classroom setting, I guess, of the rehab, the treatment center. But after being the director of housing, being pretty successful at that, I got a job also being operations at that center. So I was doing a little bit of both. And for myself, I know I got into it, and I had some warnings from a lot of people, and I could see the road that a lot of people go down working in treatment and also being in recovery and trying to balance that, or some people just not even trying to balance it and being like, well, I don't need to participate in recovery groups and stuff like that anymore because I got this job, and this job allows me to do the best of both worlds. And this is kind of like what we're talking about, is our work. The freely giving of ourself doesn't work if we're charging money for it, right? So keeping those two things separate, and I swore up and down that I would be able to do that, and I think I did for a little while. It was tough to do, in a sense that once I started being in that operational role and being at the center every day, and then dealing with the housing issues every night, and then trying to eke out a little bit of time for myself, it really became too much, right? What I didn't like about it was you get to see a lot of unprofessionalism. And I'll leave it at that. I won't elaborate too much. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not here to say that people aren't doing it right. This treatment center is bad. This one's not. This one's good. I have seen some very, very well ran treatment centers, and I've seen some very, very not so well ran and not so ethical and everything like that. And I think that that's going to be the case in any line of business, anywhere you go. I know for me, it started to become a little bit toxic in my life. It started to eat up a lot of my time. It was very, very difficult for me to work 60, 70 hours a week and then still go to my recovery groups. And then, what happens? Like, a couple of active clients pop up in those same groups that I'm in. And then I feel like I can't share, I can't be open, I can't be myself. Because how am I supposed to be vulnerable in front of them when,
they're probably feeling the same way.
Exactly. So for me, it really lessened what I was doing in my own personal recovery life and in my personal recovery groups, and it made me short, and it made me stressed, and it presented its own unique set of solutions that it just wasn't for me anymore. And I worked it for a little over almost 4 years, worked in that field, and then I decided it just wasn't for me. And what I really wish is that for these kind of fields that there was more clinical training, and certainly at least in my in the place where I worked, which was a great place and had some phenomenal people working for it. Right. I'm not here to shit talk any of them, but I wish there was more clinical training for people that don't have a clinical background, and maybe we are just in recovery. We're trying to do something in our own personal lives and in our career path that's going to help and also be able to give back at the same time. And I wish that there was more of a dividing line there, but it just wasn't there for me,
I think that your story is particularly interesting, Greg, because I think most people would have relapsed in that circumstance, and like kind of what I was talking about was how everybody's different, and you're really going to see what's on somebody's heart in that situation. So I salute you for that. But I'll also say, like, and you probably know this as well, but the majority of, and I'm just saying this, but the majority of heinous things that I've seen are usually by people that are early in recovery, hired by rehabs.
Mm-hmm.
These people that get charged with criminal acts and
Yes.
predatory behaviors. And that's the part that really sickens me is that kind of stuff. But also, I will also say on the pro side of it, that I do think that in the last couple of years that Florida has come a long way because it was so out of control that it's kind of over litigated, not in a good way like it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because before,
Absolutely.
I mean, like if
it was the wild west, man.
if you were in recovery, like it's like 3 of your friends own a rehab, like it's like,
Yeah.
you could run a Panera and then own a rehab the next day, or like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just,
And here's the thing, from working in it, Corey, I know that, and I'm not saying that we need to agree with this concept. We don't need to agree, but those places need to keep the lights on, right? They need to pay their payroll. It's a business, the same as any other business operates, and so sometimes, as far as you have programs that are billing for insurance, and so there are certain things that me or you or Corey or Shawn will look like and be like, that ain't recovery, bro, like the DBT stuff or whatever. But and again, this is part of like that three-headed beast thing, is like, okay, with alcoholism, I think we can all agree with true, real deal, hopeless alcoholism, it's becomes pretty easy to tell who's who, right? With the opiate epidemic, with heroin usage, with all that, we've talked about it before on the show. Sometimes those lines get blurred, and with the
what do you mean by that? Like, I don't, just elaborate just a moment.
Meaning that, for perfect example, I can give anybody off the street, literally anybody, heroin or an opiate medication for 30 days. And if they take it for 30 days,
you're going now. Okay.
They will be addicted to it.
They're going to get
right. They will be physically addicted to it. So in that sense, treatment does work. It's just, if we had that information out there properly and taught properly, because those people that can just detox from it, maybe do a few more weeks in treatment, talk to a therapist about maybe why they were abusing their medications or went so far as to abuse heroin. I've talked to scores of people that became addicted to heroin because they were overprescribed pain meds, and that's just the state of the situation that the country's in, and the world really. But the distinction there becomes is, for guys like us, we've talked about it a million times. When I leave treatment and get back out into the real world, and I'm 30, 45, 90 days removed from my drug of choice or drugs and alcohol in general, I don't get better. I get worse. Right. And so I think that doing a better job of making that distinction is part of, how we I don't know. I almost kind of forgot where I was circling back with that, but those distinctions, I think
those opiates.
Yeah, they'll get you.
Another thing is that you and Corey both came here from the rehab. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So it's also
right.
a blessing too.
Were you gonna? Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, you're good.
Like I said, the structure of it was phenomenal. I think that is what it gave me the most, is what treatment. I don't know if I'd be here without treatment. So I don't want to undercut it entirely, but it is the absolute bullshit that we can all agree on that happens. And Greg, to your point, the other day we said in the chat, a lot of that stuff is just happening in the medical field to begin with.
Right.
And it's crooked and corrupt, and it's a business, and treatment is 100% in no way, shape, or form about anything else except money. It's a business. Mm-hmm. If they happen to help a few people, that's all the better. And I do think that some of the techs and the therapists and stuff get into the business and they enjoy it because they do help. Mm-hmm. At least, I mean, there were moments when I was in treatment that I still remember today as things that helped me by members of the recovery community that I came to know. Right. So all that's great. But yeah, dude, it's just I would be interested in getting somebody on here one day that we can kind of deep dive it with, somebody that's on that side of the fence that will kind of defend it, and maybe I can see more of their point of view, because I just don't. It goes back to my original point. What I can't reconcile is how somebody and I see it all the time on social media, but how somebody can have a freaking pep rally for a treatment center or whatever, on their social media posts and whatever, this is the fucking bee's knees. You got to come here. We're the best. We're the whatever. We offer all this stuff, whatever.
Horseback riding.
And that's horseback riding on beaches. That's a whole another story. Whatever, but and then still
I think that might have more value.
And then still see them in the nighttime recovery group, talking about God and a spiritual solution and all this stuff. I'm not saying they can't coexist, but what's really effective to the real alcoholic or drug addict. You know what I mean?
Also, I don't know if there's and if it's anecdotal or a subjective or a real correlation, but every treatment center I've seen that was very 12-step heavy emphasis went out of business. So I don't know if there's a correlation to that.
And unfortunately,
insurance doesn't pay for that.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Again, I'm not here to shit talk my old job, and I have nothing but love for those people, even the people that I didn't get along with, absolutely nothing but love for you if any of you listen. But I will say that.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I will say, there were things there that we were specifically told that, guys, we need to get the clients into this because insurance has to be billed for this, and we're all looking at the clients I don't want to go do that. That's, and I'm not going to say what it was again, because I'm not going to say it, but it wasn't anything that one would think would go along with.
Was it ketamine?
No, it was not ketamine. But
that wasn't around.
Well, it was around.
Not. But
I think the thing is that you know what the uses of that are and why it's being done and whatnot. And that's the thing, is it can get done in that kind of sense without being some of the more heinous stuff like you were talking about, Bill, like where people are actually going to prison for long lengths of time for doing really corrupt, serious shit,
For sure. And that goes and I said behavior techs did that, but owners too did that.
Absolutely.
And I know them in prison as well. But I guess the overall mantra for me here is and this is how I thought of it when I worked there, was be the change you want to see. I didn't really tell anyone there I was in treatment myself, and but it would have been harder if I was around a lot of people who were active in treatment. Obviously, they would have known me.
Like, I will say this about the place that I worked: we were not allowed to do that. We were not allowed to do that.
I had good. Greg, you might be able to inform me of otherwise. I had good opinions for the most part of the place you worked, and there was a couple others in the area that I had good opinions about.
I've got nothing bad to say about them. The one thing I will say is that again, kind of what we were talking about before, where it's like, maybe I get it. You're in recovery, you're in groups, your recovery groups, and your social clique, and the four of us, not to say that we would, but the four of us, we get sober, we get a few years under our belt, we're working jobs, we get a little bit of money in the bank. You know what, guys, we should help people. We should help people in a greater sense than what we're doing, and we should pool our money together, and we should become a treatment center. And then next thing you know, it's for people that might be professional people, but we aren't professional clinicians, and we shouldn't be running an organization like that,
bro. Okay? That's a whole nother thing. Like, I know people from my past life, so to speak, like prior to sobriety, that I would not ask them how to get to Circle K, Walmart, anywhere, and they're out here helping people.
I don't know if you meant it this way, Greg, but we should actually. I'm not opposed to somebody like us running a rehab. It actually is the people who run the rehab that are the problem usually, because they're hiring the clinicians. Usually you can tell when a clinician's dirty. Usually,
but some of those people were just like us at one point.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
So, all right, let me get a few in here, because I got you guys. You guys make some
over under, Greg, 10 to 12 over under 10 people in the United States right now driving a Bentley off piss cup money. What do you think? Over or under?
Come on, over 10.
Over
10.
Right?
What about 10 people in Martin County? Probably.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
I know one driver.
Anyway,
I agree. I agree. Shawn.
Okay, so first off, this sparked pretty much the exact type of conversation I had a feeling it would. Two of us have never worked in the treatment industry or the recovery industry, and two of us have. And I know, Bill, yours was a little more on the back end of things. It wasn't directly with the clients necessarily, but Greg, I know yours was. So my stance on this, in the type of recovery that the four of us are in, has clearly been documented with the four of us and all that. And I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about it here, because I am passionate about this. But I'll say this: on the macro level, here's the biggest issue I see. And you guys all kind of touched on it without even maybe realizing. The four of us believe that we have a spiritual malady. Would you guys agree with that? That our problem is spiritual. It's not physical. It's not emotional. It's not mental. It's not social. It's not financial. Definitely not romantic. It is a spiritual malady. We have a spiritual sickness, a soul sickness, however you want to put it. You guys would agree with that?
I would. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would say that we have we do have a physical and mental malady as well, but we've come to see that only the spiritual will solve it.
So okay, what comes first is the spiritual,
right? Yeah,
that's at the base root of all of it. Because Corey, if you and I just treated our physical and emotional, we'd be dead.
Right,
we'd be dead. We all believe that we have a spiritual sickness. Yes, you're right. It does have a physical and a component and a mental component. Agreed. Our literature is very clear. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then we can straighten out mentally and physically. The entire treatment industry is therapeutic in nature and is only trying to treat the physical and the emotional or the psychological. I know there are some out there, like shout out to 12 Keys, right? There are some out there that definitely are more incorporated in the spirit, but you can't, like, we can't believe and buy into that we have a spiritual malady and then go try to treat it with a whole bunch of psychoanalytical stuff. And to be honest with you, I made a joke. I think the horseback riding on the beach actually might be more effective because that's more to me a nature, a spirit, a spiritual kind of activity. I don't know much about DMB or whatever it is that we were
Dave
talking
Matthews
about.
Band?
The other what?
Dave Matthews.
It's actually somewhat very much centered in meditation and like breathing exercises.
And I want to get back to that because I'm truly not trying to knock things. I actually read up a little bit just now on it, but like we're in a recovery group that focuses on a spiritual problem. Yet we want to go, and not necessarily we, but yet people want to go work in an industry that is only treating the emotional and the psycho, all that stuff, right? That's one of the biggest problems I see. I think on the whole, again, macro sense, I'm not talking about micro, I'm not talking about person to person. I think working in the treatment or drug and alcohol rehabilitation center for people like us is a very dangerous thing. I do. I've seen it. I've seen way more. Bill said something like 10%. I would agree with that. I've seen way more people not succeed in their own personal sobriety than I have actually succeed and be effective. But then you get into a conversation of like, what does success mean in that? Are we talking about money? Are we talking about helping people? Where does the own, like the altruism come into play? So like, there's a lot that's going on here. I think that DMT stuff that we were just looking up, that I was just looking up. Am I getting
DMT is so totally
I just
different.
read it. Okay. I just read it, and nowhere in it does it say. It talks about mindfulness, Greg. You're absolutely right. It talks about like how to manage the emotions and all that. And it says it's specifically for people with like bipolar disorder and post-traumatic stress. I understand that some people in recovery may have those things, but it doesn't even say in the description of what it is for like drug addicts and alcoholics. I think that's an issue. I'm not saying it's not effective, but like I think that's the kind of stuff, like we're using these techniques. We are trying, as a treatment industry, they are trying to throw all types of different therapies and psychoanalytics and all this stuff at it when the problem is spiritual and it has to be solved on a spiritual plane. I think that's like the biggest, again, macro sense issue with all of it.
And I will say this, for myself personally, my therapist in rehab just so happened to be a guy that was 30 years sober himself, so I lucked out there. And some of the best work that I did in rehab, some of the stuff that really worked was working through some unresolved childhood trauma and some stuff that had just happened to me along the way. And that is not the story of every drug addict and alcoholic, right? But it was my story, and that was very, very helpful to me, and helpful to me in a sense too when it came time for my aftercare, when it came time for me to seek out a recovery group and get involved and go through and really know what permanent, real recovered and recovery from drug addiction and alcoholism was. That piece that I did in rehab helped tremendously for me to even be ready, because it was stuff that I was so ashamed of talking about. I've never admitted it in a room full of people, let alone to my buddies. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody knew about that until I came here, or I came to treatment, and I like let it all out. So there were things that if you were dealing with that, but I think again, what the real distinction is here is that we can't allow treatment to be viewed as this is going to be the be all end all, and then you can just leave here and everything's going to be fine. Because for people like us, you're right, it won't be.
Yep.
We'll end up dead.
And let me say, what you brought up a good point. I meant to bring this up earlier. You're absolutely right. And I know you're talking about the guy that was 30 years sober and all that. I actually still talk with him, believe it or not, through email, through the prison that he works with and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
But we talk. We've all talked before too. Like, if I'm in treatment and I'm sitting across from a counselor or a therapist and they have no personal experience with drugs and alcohol, like they are just a degree and just a PhD, they don't have any street cred, so to speak. We kind of look at them like, yo, dude, you don't know what I've been through. Right. So it's kind of a weird thing. Like the clinical, I love what you said earlier, Greg. I wish there was more clinical training, because the clinical part of it, I think it is a double-edged sword. Like I kind of need someone that has personal, not only the academic and clinical training, but has personal experience being in the throes of alcoholism and drug addiction. So it kind of is, I think, where I would like sever that line is maybe the treatment center I own, maybe it should be I don't own one, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like if I own one, it should be a policy. I don't hire clients. That's it.
I mean,
I don't hire clients. I know, but you could do that. You could totally do that. If you paid your clients well enough and you offer the right perks, you could attract. And I'm not saying don't hire people that aren't in recovery. I'm just saying I'm not hiring Bill,
somebody who used
3.5 months sober, to come be a behavior tech. You know what I mean?
No, like, you have to have your standards.
Kind of something.
I never went to your stupid rehab anyway.
That literally.
We pay good, Bill.
So, Shawn, and what you just said, I literally wrote it down real quick as a note because I wanted to say it. Last thing I really want to say on this topic, I think, pertaining to the person that's in recovery, the new person that's getting sober, it's almost, and I remember being in this position too, and I kind of thought the same thing that everybody else was thinking. I remember sitting on my rehab bed with the blue sheets and whatever. I don't know if every rehab is blue sheets or whatever. We had blue sheets, and blue comforter. And like the tech comes by to check on you and stuff. And like, then it dawns on you, oh my God, people get paid to work in recovery. Who knew? Because I didn't know. And then I thought, I'm a drug addict. I could do that. I could have a job. And as a 19-year-old drug addict that never really had anything and only had like 1 to 2 jobs, not even that serious of jobs, I'm thinking like, I did think this. I promise this was a real thought. Like I could do that one day. And it didn't pan out that way at all. I went to a car wash, to a bowling alley, to property management, and I'm still in property management. But I thought that. And what I would say to the new person that's in that position or whatever, like, you know, like we're saying, like, nobody's going to throw you out of the recovery groups for working in treatment or nothing. And you're not necessarily an asshole for doing so. Not what I'm trying to say. But, like, don't sell yourself short either. Just because, like, that's, like, the easy... to me... I again don't want to undercut anybody's profession and like demean anybody, point. But like to me, it's the easy thing to do when you're a drug addict and you're coming into sobriety. And if you stay sober, getting into the treatment industry, you can do it with a rap sheet. You can do it with a list of felonies. You can, you know what I mean? And like, but what you don't know is that you can do a lot of things with a list of felonies. You know what I mean? You can apply yourself and go into multiple different. Dude, I don't physically touch, but I handle millions of dollars. You know what I mean? As far as on financial statements and stuff. I never thought, you couldn't have told me back then that anybody would let me do that stuff. But they will. They will if you work hard, you do all the right stuff first, spiritually and all that stuff. And then the other side of that, and I'll close with this, like the dangerous thing is we have a friend that says it often. And like, I don't think he'd mind me sharing it. But like, then you're kind of stuck in that industry, right? In the treatment industry. You kind of devote yourself to that and like climbing the chain or whatever. And like we already talked about, there's not a lot of loyalty. They go out of business constantly. They close, they reopen under other names, whatever. Like I know people with 20 rehabs on their resume. I'm like, how do you fit all that on a couple sheets of paper? And it's like, well, I cut them out, you know? And then the reality is, and this is what I was getting to, that one of our buddies says, it's like, then I'm not worth $15 an hour outside of this industry. I have to stay here. You know what I mean? I can't switch industries because I can't afford to. You know, I'm making a lot of money now because they will pay a lot of money. So like that's a whole thing. But like, you know, I'm not saying there's not a necessity for them on some level. I'm not 100% against it, but I definitely have big problems with it. So I hope I made sense.
Would you guys rather
you did.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we're about out of time, but I wanted to give Bill and Greg like a 1 more minute each. If you guys in closing, kind of go ahead, Bill. In closing, 1 minute.
I got a question for you guys. Would you guys rather that the rehab bills the insurance for the AA meeting or not do it at all? Corey first. Go ahead, Corey. Yes or no?
I'd rather than bill for it because
Shawn, go ahead. Shawn, you're up.
Oh, okay.
I F you, Bill DeLuca, but I'd rather than bill it. Great question.
Remember you said that, guys. Greg, you're up.
Are you saying it's all or nothing?
Yeah, all or nothing.
So we do away with the treatment industry, or they're billing for a meeting being brought in?
No, or they don't bring them
in.
in.
Either no meeting.
They don't bring them to meetings at all,
or they're billing the insurance.
Yeah. I mean, I hate that one as well. But yeah, bill it.
Yeah,
Great
bill
question.
it out. Get your money. All right, that's all from me.
Fun fact, though, especially with a lot of the legislation and whatnot, the insurance companies won't accept billing for that nowadays too. So
which is good.
They'll be all right.
because a lot of people did it and got away with it.
Yeah,
I will say this. I believe that treatment is absolutely necessary. I think it's absolutely necessary for those people that are just suffering through various stages of an addiction or a hardcore problem in their lives, and they can go there and they can get straightened out and get their lives back on track. And for that reason, it's absolutely necessary. I am 100% for governmental regulations, whether it be state or federal, to kind of crack down and make sure that the corruption and the greedy, chaotic, terrible shit doesn't happen to people, because those people, in a sense, even though society looks at them a little bit differently when they're in that kind of setting, a lot of them are innocent. They're innocent people, and they're just trying to get their lives back on track. So on the flip side of that, for those people in recovery, just because you went to a treatment center and the guy that owns the treatment center was real nice to you while you were there, and you got out and you're in a recovery group, and you look at that guy like he is some pillar of the community, maybe just look at the way he moves and the way he talks and the way he acts and the way he or she.
He was saying, don't date your therapist.
Step back from the situation, because you'll notice some things about some people. Also, I will say this: in the recovery groups and communities themselves, man, we can sometimes act real childish and real gossipy and real rough. So,
always look for your wife in treatment. That's what we got out of that.
Hey, real quick too, shout out to the 3 or 4 people I know out of the hundreds that work in recovery that are actually straight. Like, there are actually moral people. There are a few out there. Also, shout out to the people that could have never and would never get sober or recover in a rehab. I know I was one of them. Like, if you were going to give me a hot shower and a bologna sandwich, I was never going to get it, man. Like, I needed a different way. I think it's a rare, I'm not trying to outbot them or anything like that, but I think there are some people like of that mindset. So,
yeah.
But like the majority, I think the rehabs are good for, like, to at least bring them all in.
I think we'll end in this in a couple quick quotes from our recovery literature. We favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery and befogged, not necessarily 30, 60, or 90 days of it, but some type of detox. It also, our literature also says never belittle a good doctor or psychiatrist. They basically, I'll paraphrase, but like, they often have services that are indispensable, and I would agree with that. I would 100% agree with that. I just think we sometimes are trying to combat alcoholism and drug addiction from all these angles over here, when the clear angle is the spiritual malady. So,
and
good
don't
episode,
forget the
guys.
one last quote, Shawn.
Being...
One last quote. You missed all the shots you don't take. Michael Scott.
Yeah. Well, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Nah, we give that one to Michael Scott.
All right,
Michael Scott, definitely.
Alex Ovechkin.
Shout out to Ovechkin too.
Yeah. Shout out to
Ovechkin.
No, fuck him.
Shout out to our listeners, guys. They're the real winners here. Our listeners are the real winners. Guys, we know that we're not.
You guys can play this in a rehab
some
and
hate
bill
mail,
for it.
Please.
Just a new hack. They could play this
just going to say,
for
we know
1
that
hour
we're not
group.
the greatest at this yet. If nothing else, take pity on us and like and subscribe and share. And even if you don't want to listen to it, just follow our YouTube channel and just hit the thumbs up button. Share it with whoever you might think. At Trudge Report Pod, email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send in your mailbag requests for topics, questions, and comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are all here if anyone wants to talk about recovery and our experiences, or if you're struggling with some form of addiction, or if you have something counterintuitive to anything we said. Thank you again to Janine and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night, God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. We shall see you next week. Cheers.